I met him in 1970. I was 23, but there I was in India, and all I wanted to do was, not be further than 2 inches away from his feet. People would see him that way. I mean, they had visions of him as Hanuman himself, that he had no icha of his own, that everything that happened was truly Ram working through him, moving through him.
I'm curious to know about Steve Jobs. I wanted to know if Steve Jobs met Maharaj Ji while Maharaj Ji was alive. Did Maharaj Ji ever speak about his memories as Hanuman Ji during the Ramayana time with Lord Ram? Namaste, this is Preetika Rao. Welcome to my podcast. Today I have with me Krishna Das Ji, who is very popular for his devotional music, and he's also going to be speaking to me about his guru, Neem Karoli Baba Ji, who was known to be India's miracle man. People believed that he is actually Hanuman Ji himself. Krishna Das Ji, firstly, thank you so much for being a part of my podcast. I'm really honored and I'm a huge fan myself.
Acha.
Yes, you have a divinely blessed voice, especially for bhajans and kirtans. You've had a very deep connection with India and, of course, with your guru, Neem Karoli Babaji. He's known popularly as Maharaj Ji. I'm really curious to know, how did you meet your guru, Neem Karoli Baba?
There was a man named Ramdas who went to India, an American, Richard Alpert, and he met Maharaji there. And he then returned to America and was talking about him, even though Maharaji said, "Don't talk about me." All he did was talk about him. That's all he could do. You couldn't not talk about him. But he never said his name or where to find him, so he figured he was okay. But he would tell stories, and people were immersed in it. I just was burning with longing to meet Maharaji after meeting Ramdas. After a year and a half or so of traveling around with him in America, I needed to come to India.
What was your age when you met him?
I met him in 1970. I was 23.
Perfect time to meet a guru.
Any time is a perfect time, but it's a difficult time because, 23 years old is a time when people get very lost in the world also. But there I was in India, and all I wanted to do was, not be further than 2 inches away from his feet. So it was life-changing for sure.
We all know that Neem Karoli Baba was an avatar of Hanumanji, right? Lord Hanumanji. But how did people really come to know that? Because I'm sure he never told that to people, right? Or did he?
No, in fact, he completely hid himself. But people would see him that way. I mean, they had visions of him as Hanuman himself. And he always had Hanuman Chalisa read, Sundarakand read, Tulsidas Ramayan, Ramcharitmanas always read in the temples. He built Hanuman temples wherever he went. And they would have their own experience of him as Hanuman. You can't hide the sun forever. No matter how, the clouds sooner or later burn away. And that's what it was like.
True. Was he always chanting Ram Nam?
Yeah, you could see his tongue was always moving. And no matter what he was doing, as soon as he wasn't talking, you could see the tongue moving. And also his fingers, he was always going around like this, as if he was doing a mala. His finger was going like that all the time. They say that he had no awareness of his body and that he had no icha of his own, that everything that happened was truly Ram working through him, moving through him, that he had no personal ego left in that being at all. And everything that was happening by God's will, which was very powerful, very deep.
What do you think was the purpose of Neem Karoli Babaji's life? Why was he here in India, in Kechi Dham at that time? What was the purpose really? Did he really reveal it? to anybody, or did he tell anybody why he was there at that time in India?
There's actually a prayer called the Vinaya Chalisa, which was written about Maharaji himself by a man who didn't know anything about him. It's a long story, but some of those lines say, you wander like a god, distributing blessings to everyone you meet. It was as if he knew who his people were, and he traveled constantly, moving constantly to distribute prasad to them, to help them get what they needed in life. You know, there's a story about an old devotee of his who lost everything, his business, his family, everything, and he was essentially homeless. And he was suffering terribly, I mean, mentally, physically. My Indian father, K.C. Tiwari, who was very close with Maharaji, was yelling at him, how could you let this happen to him? He loves you so much. He's been your disciple, your devotee for so long. How could you let this happen? Don't you know what he's going through? And Maharaji said, I do know. I feel everything that he feels. And yes, I could change it. But if I change it, he would have to come back again and go through this again. I don't let it get beyond his ability to deal with it. I keep it at a level that he can still survive and burn off this karma. I mean, the level that these beings work on is extraordinary. In other words, he knew he could have changed it. Of course he could change it. And there was tears in Maharaji's eyes as he's talking to Tiwari, because he felt the suffering, you know.
What were the core teachings of Neem Karoli Babaji's life? Something that he, on repeat would tell people to adhere to?
Well, you know, we Westerners came over with lots of ideas about being great yogis. We were going to, meditate and get samadhi and all this stuff. And we said, Baba, how do we find God? He said, serve people. What? Come on. How do you raise Kundalini? He said, feed people. He said, don't think about yourself, think about others. Love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. He would say, Ram Nam Karne se sapura ho jata hai. From going on repeating the name of Ram, these names of God, everything is accomplished. Everything is accomplished. This is what he would repeat very often.
Did Maharaj Ji ever speak about his memories as Hanuman Ji during the Ramayana time with Lord Ram?
He might have to his Indian devotees. For us who didn't really speak Hindi that well, especially at the beginning, we wouldn't really understand what was going on in terms of that. But there's a very good book in English. It's called Divine Reality, and it's a collection of stories, mostly the Indian devotees. It's in Hindi too, but personally, I don't remember him saying too many things like that. He would show us that he was living within us, that he knew everything about us. And there was no judging, we weren't afraid, because there was only love. You know, one of the first books I had read was Gospel of Ramakrishna, and that just lit me up. I could not believe that the power of the love and the devotion. I mean, it's a big, thick book somebody kept a diary of everything that happened for years. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes, I've read that book too, and it was the first book I read too.
Really?
I was in school back then, and yes, I would say that book really changed my perception and how I perceived life and spirituality. And yes, I think it's a very profound book if people can read it. You say that Maharaj Ji knew everything about everybody, right? Was there anything that he told you about yourself that, was startling or did amaze you?
Every day, all day long. Finally, you got used to being with somebody who knew everything about you. Everything. it wasn't a love that came and went. It wasn't a love that we were given. It was a love we were allowed to enter into. It was as if he opened the doors to the room where love lives and ushered us in. But then our minds would take us right out. So everybody there had the same experience. Like, for instance, one day I come out of my room and he looks at me and said, "Is your mother coming to India?" I said, "My mother?" You know, I've been in India 2 years at that point, and I was never going back to America. My mother? No. Later that day, I get a message from the hotel in Nainital. "Your mother called from America. She wants to talk to you." So I went to Nainital the next day. I booked the call, and I get to my mother. "Ma, hi, how you doing?" And she, what is the first thing she says? "I want to come to India." I said, "I have to ask my guru." So I ran back to the temple, and of course he knew already. He said, "Tell her to come." Oh, shit. I didn't want to see her. But it turned out to be a beautiful trip.
I heard you made sure that you have the keys of Maharajji's car because you wanted to make sure that you would drive him around. Is that true?
Yeah. So one day he looked at Ramdas and he said, "Ramdas, you're a saint. You shouldn't touch money and you shouldn't drive. Give him the keys." So he gave me the keys to the car. So my first name, my first official name that Maharajji gave me was Driver. For about 6 months, Driver. So I had a secret desire to drive him in the car, and it was a Volkswagen bus. I kept the keys with me. They were never more than a foot away. I slept them with under my pillow. I always had them with me, right? And this went on for months and months and months. Finally, one day I was sitting with him in Allahabad. He kind of looks at me and goes, "Got the keys?" "Uh-huh." "Cello." We went out to the car. Dada's walking with Maharajji. And the seat for the Volkswagen bus is high. So he had to throw himself up onto the seat. And he bashes his head on the door frame really hard. And I went, "Oh my God, Dada, did you see that?" And I thought, here I am, my desire to drive him, and I caused him pain, right? Dada said, "Shut up." He said, he did it on purpose, just drive. That's a real devotee. He did it on, there was nothing that Maharajji did in Dada's mind. He did everything on purpose. So we get in the car, and he says, "Drive to the Sangam." We're in Allahabad. So I'm driving, and he's going, "Watch out, you're going too fast, watch out, there's a car coming, be careful, watch out." The whole way like that, right? We get to the Sangam, I turn the car off. 1 minute later, he says, "Okay, let's go back." The whole way back, it was the same thing. "Watch out." So the next day, we were being sent away on a pilgrimage with Swami Muktananda. So we're driving out of Allahabad, and I'm driving, and there's a big long turn on the GT road, and on the other side of the road, there's a reservoir. And I went into the turn too fast, and the car was sliding across the road. We were going right into the water, and all of a sudden, whoosh, a big wind came and literally blew us 20 feet back onto the road. That's why he hit his head. Can I prove it to you? No. But that's why he hit his head. We were gone. We really were gone. There was no doubt about it. Everything he did, and even today, everything that happens, there's only one reason that he does things, is compassion for us. We're lost. He's found. And everything these great saints do is to help us. Ultimately, sometimes it means that we burn a little bit because of our own actions. But their job is to free us from suffering. And being around him all day long, he just distributed prasad in one form or another.
what did Neem Karoli Babaji have to say about karma, and how are we supposed to deal with our karma?
One time I was having a nervous breakdown in the temple, actually. A long story. I had a girlfriend back in America. We broke up. I didn't see her again. She wound up actually committing and then coming to see me at night in a dream type of thing. And it was very disturbing. And Maharaji was teasing me about getting married. It was like, it was just a crazy time. Because what would happen is, there was a lot of energy. So the Westerners, two of the Westerners would get together. Maharaj would go, "Oh, they're friends. Isn't that great? They're friends. Very good." A couple of days later, "Oh, they're good friends." A couple of days later, boom, you're married, go to America. That was not happening to me. I don't care. I'm not going anywhere. That was my... And so anyway, he started teasing me about getting married. So I was getting very freaky, and I had this experience with my former girlfriend. And so I had a complete breakdown, and he sent somebody to get me. And I'm crying in his lap, and he said, "The fruit of attachment is tears. You're reaping that fruit now. But don't worry. The bad times, the hard times are over, and the good times will come." This was the context that he would talk about things. He never gave lectures and stuff like that. But in a certain situation, he would say certain things to help us understand what was going on.
Sometime back you said that when couples would come to Maharajji and say, we want to have a child, and he would say, where would I get a baby from? Would he say something about, karma and people not being destined to have kids or to have anything that they want or they desire in this world?
Like I said, he didn't really talk like that. I know stories of one woman that he said, "You won't marry." And in fact, she had to take care of her family and her brothers and sisters, and she never even had time to marry. But things like that would happen. There's another story about a pujari in Mathura at a baby Krishna, Balakrishna temple, right? And he was a very angry guy. And he never let the children come in the temple grounds. So one day Maharaji comes there to the temple for darshan, and the pujari comes to Baba and he bows and "Baba, please, my wife and I, we're trying so hard for a baby." And he was already an old man. He said, "We have no child." And Maharaji said, "You keep the children away from the child, and you think you can have one? If you let them come, let the children in to play with Balakrishna, and you'll have your child." And a year later, they had a child.
Wow.
This was going on all the time. I mean, all the time. Miracles just fell off of him like leaves off a tree. And nothing for himself, He had one blanket, and one dhoti and a banyan, and that was it. He would pick up and go. He didn't take a suitcase with him. He just walked off. And you never know if he was coming back. He would say, "Oh, I'm coming back in 2 days." 3 months later, where is he? You don't see him. That he would lie about. Oh, he would lie like that. But about real stuff, he wouldn't lie.
Did he also predict, like departing from this plane? Like when he was close to his death, did he tell people that he's going to die or he's going to leave his body?
I mean, it was inconceivable that he would leave the body. He was so alive. But he sent me back to America in March 73. So I wasn't there for the last 6 months or so. And they say that by the end of that period, he wasn't coming out to give darshan much, and that he was so immersed. He couldn't even open his eyes. He was just so deep inside that he say, "I'll run away, I'll run away. I'll run away when no one can find me." Somebody said, "Baba, where will that be that we can't find you?" He said, "Oh, by the Narmada, I'll go." And, there are people who've seen him. Not me, but I know people who have seen him.
Seen him after he was gone?
Yeah.
Amazing. I have read books where it's written that saints can be seen in two different places at the same time.
Okay, I'll tell you a great story. So Maharaj was in New Delhi, and there was a new temple in Mehrauli that was being built. And it was the time for the Bandara and the opening of the temple. So Maharaj went up to Raniket with K.C. Tiwari, my Indian father, who told me this. And they were in a house in Raniket on the day of the Bandara in Mehrauli. About noon, Maharaji says to Tiwari, Jello, let's go for a walk. And they went for a walk out on one of the ridges of the mountains. And Maharaji tells Tiwari, sit down, look at the Himalayas and meditate. So after some period of time, Maharaj said, Hat, you miserable guy. Come on, wasting my time. We have things to do. Let's go. And so they go back to the house. The next day, a group of people arrive from Mehrauli with a basket of prasad. And they come into the house and they say, Maharaji left without taking prasad, so we brought prasad from the temple. And the people in the house said, what do you mean he left? I mean that he was there at the temple, and when we looked for him to give him prasad, he was gone. And then, what are you talking about? He was here all day. And then they're arguing, are you calling me a liar? And then the people from Mehrauli saw Tiwari, and he points at and he was there too. And that's a first-hand story. That's not somebody telling somebody. Tiwari himself told me that. And all he knew is that Maharaj said, meditate. He meditated. He also went to Delhi with Maharaji.
Did Maharaji ever speak about the difference between meditation and maybe, devotional singing or bhajans, as it's called in India?
I once asked Siddhi Ma, I said, Ma, should I sing or should I meditate? And she said, well, what do you like to do? Well, okay, And then she said, Krishnadas, in 40 years with Maharaji, never once did he ask me to meditate. But he told me to serve people and to do japa. But he said that the deeper states of meditation cannot be brought about by the personal will. But when through service and japa, the heart and mind is purified, they will happen automatically, naturally by themselves.
That's actually very reassuring because, a lot of people think that it's so difficult to follow the spiritual path or to get liberation or to burn our sins. But it's so easy, you just have to chant the name of God, do your japa, and also feeding people or doing annadan, as it's called, charity. It's not that difficult as well. Anybody can do it, even if it's just like, giving biscuits to the dogs or, feeding children or donating money at an old age home. It's so easy. So it's actually very reassuring that it's not so hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And no one served people like Maharaji. All he did was serve people all the time, everyone who came. Maharaji used to tease us. He used to look at us and say, I have the keys to the mind. I could turn your minds against me. And we said, Baba, don't do that. He would laugh. You could see all of a sudden you wake up one day and say, why am I in India? I'm going home. And you just, So, so one time I said to Siddhi Ma, I said, Ma, Maharaji said he has the keys to the mind. So to me, that means that I am where he has placed me, where he wants me to be. So, is it all his doing? Is it all grace? Or is my effort required? Right? I mean, everybody asks this question, grace or effort? She gave the best answer in the world. She looked at me, she said, Krishnadas, It's all grace, but you have to act like it isn't. We don't know that it's all grace. We hope it is. We'd like to believe it is, but we don't experience that directly. So, because you think you're you and I think I'm me, we have effort to make. Until such time as those thoughts don't arise, then beautiful answer.
Did he show people their past lives, or did you see your past life? Because I think you really had some deep Indian connection.
Yeah, I know. Once I had a dream. I was coming back to Earth from outer space, coming right back, heading right home to India. Yeah, great, great. But at the last minute, I made a left turn and I wound up in New York.
Okay.
I don't know anything about past lives. I don't know anything about this life.
I'm curious to know about Steve Jobs because even Google didn't have the answer. Okay. I wanted to know if Steve Jobs met Maharajji while Maharajji was alive, or did he visit Kechi Dham after Maharajji had passed on?
He came to India to meet Maharaji, but Maharaji had already left the body. And I understood he stayed in the temple for a couple of weeks. There's a funny story that nobody else knows, actually. I told it a few times. Once again, Mr. Tiwari told me. Maharaji had a great old devotee who was the chief of police of Kurukshetra named Omkar Singh, I think. And he had a son who was like a wild man, crazy person, who loved Maharaji very much. And he was in the temple at the same time that Steve Jobs was there. And this guy didn't know anything. I don't even think there were computers yet. It was the very beginning of all that. One night, in Vrindavan, there's the Hanuman Mandir is in front of the temple, and you can walk around. It's just one room. You can walk around, do parikrama. They say that one night, this guy walked around Hanuman all night long, repeating over and over, computer, 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 all night long. Kya baat? Who knows what's going on there? But they say that he got some inspiration. He was also very friendly with Larry Brilliant, who was responsible, who Maharaji sent to eradicate smallpox.
Yes.
That's a beautiful book, too. If you haven't read Sometimes Brilliant, it's a beautiful book. Steve actually sent Larry the first computers that he had up to Nepal so they could keep records of the operations they were doing on the cataracts for people. They've done millions of operations, saved millions of people from blindness.
So many years after Maharajji has passed on, people still go and visit Kechi Dham. Would you know of any incidences where it would probably prove that his presence is still around in Kechi Dham? I'm sure you've experienced his presence after he passed on.
Without a doubt. But for me, that's not a miracle. That's my life. Without his presence, I don't live. So he's always here. All I have to do is look. That's my job, is to remember. He's always here. And he said, once I take your hand, I never let go, even when you let go of mine. And we've all let go of his, but he has not let go of ours.
Did Maharajji say that he would be reborn again?
So I know this story personally. So we were in Allahabad at Dada's house, and we were in the main room, and we were singing Sri Ram Jai Ram, and Maharaji was there, sitting on the tucket. And these two young Indian men came into the room and sat down in the back of the room by the door. And when Maharaji saw them, he said, Jao, go bring the old lady, go. Go bring the old lady, go. So they left. They came back a couple of hours later, I think, with this very old woman. And they came in and sat down. The minute they came in, Maharaji gets up and goes into his room and calls for them, the three of them. And the old lady is looking at Maharaji and she's going, Baba, Baba, how could this be? How could you be here, Baba? How could this happen? How could you be here? And he's going, Ma, chop, chop. And he's, be quiet, chop, chop. But she couldn't, she was just like, how could this be, Baba? How could this be? And finally he says, Ma, I died and was reborn in the hills. Now, will you shut up? Then he gave prasad and sent them away. So Dada, who was like the CID, he sneaks out around the back and catches them before they leave. And he says, what's the story? And the story is these two young men, one of them was her nephew. And they came from a little village outside of Allahabad. And they had heard that Neem Karoli Baba was there. So they wanted to come for darshan, but he knew that his aunt loved sadhus. So they stopped at her house and they asked her, would you come with us to see Neem Karoli Baba? And she said, Neem Karoli Baba? He was my father's guru. I used to sit on his lap when I was 8 years old. And that was, she was 80 years old. He's long gone. This must be some imposter. So she didn't come. So when the two men came in, he sent them to get her. And she says that he looks exactly the same, but she didn't remember him wearing a blanket when she was 8 years old, which was the last time she saw him. Possibly we could understand a saint being reborn, but how could he look the same 100 years later? Come on.
Amazing.
You see, once you get into this, you leave your mind at the door.
If I can ask you just one more question about Ram Das ji, because he had this divine and deep connection with Neem Karoli Baba ji. I really want to know, what was he all about? Because you knew him personally.
The image I have is someone being thrown in the water and sinking down to the bottom and gradually coming up and finally coming back and breathing the air. Ram Das his life was like that. It was full of many intense events. A lot of things happened. He went through a lot of different changes in his life, but he was really all about love. Maharaji tells Ram Das, don't touch money. So he gave his money to this other guy to hold for him and buy him tickets on the bus and food, whatever. One day Ram Das woke up in Nainital at the hotel. All the Westerners had left and gone to Kenchi already. And he had no money, and he had to walk to Kenchi over the mountains. It's like a 3.5, 4-hour walk. And he was raging angry the whole time, furious, burning, just burning. And he walks into the temple, and we're being fed. The Westerners, Maharaj used to like to watch us eat. And he would say, I'm eating through all those mouths, he would say. So we were eating, and Ram Das walks in. The guy who Ram Das hated the most in the satsang stands up and gives Ram Das a plate of food. Ram Das took the food and threw it in the guy's face, right in front of Maharaji. Maharaji goes, Ram Das, something wrong? Yeah. Well, he goes over, Kya baat? Ram Das says, I can't stand impurities in myself or in other people. So Maharaji kind of looks at him like this, up and down a couple of times, and he said, I don't see any impurity. Ram Das starts to cry. Maharaji says, Ram Das, love everyone and tell the truth. Ram Das says, the truth is, I don't love everyone. Maharaji said, Ram Das, love everyone and tell the truth. By the end of his life, Ram Das loved everyone, and that was the truth. It was such a beautiful transformation. It's not even a transformation. It's a beautiful letting go of more and more stuff until there's just that love left. And he suffered, 20 years in a wheelchair. with a catastrophic stroke. He was in pain. Every couple of months, he would almost die from a kidney infection. Rushed to the hospital, antibiotics. He never complained. He never complained. And by the end of his life, really, he was nothing but love. It was extraordinary to see and to be around.
The thing is that our generation, especially my generation, is pretty much clueless about Neem Karoli Babaji. All we've heard is that he was Hanumanji's avatar, but we don't have the real story because we don't know people who really met him. So I'm really glad that through this podcast and through you, I could bring out these beautiful insights and divine insights into his life and his journey for my audience today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have incredible fans in India. Your songs are always trending on social media, and there are so many reels, especially in this spiritual genre. I think your songs are really trending in ashrams and wherever we go. So I congratulate you on that, and thank you so much for this podcast once again.
Shri Hanumate Namo. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Raghunandan Ram Ram. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Sharanam Bhava Ram Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai 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 Ram. Shri Ram Jai